Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Seiben again here for the Aether Hub, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. You know, some people hate snakes. I never really understood why until I discovered the potential power that is Noose Constrictor. Now, I absolutely hate them just like everyone else. Of course, I'm kidding. Not about the Noose Constrictor, that card's annoying. But I actually enjoy other snakes. Yet, don't tell my girlfriend that. Anyway, stepping back on track, today we'll be covering the lore of snakes in MTG, coinciding with Nizahan's video on the top 10 snake cards ever printed. To save time and a little frustration, we'll be looking at not only traditional snakes, but snake people and Nagas as well, because if a snake has arms and legs, doesn't it make it a reptile? Wizard's logic says no. Also, I won't be hitting every single legendary snake ever made, choosing instead to go over what I feel are the most relevant to this creature type. I know many of you want me to cover literally everything, but I'm gonna try and keep things condensed. Anyway, let's begin. We start, as we so often do, on the plane of Dominaria. On such a large and ancient world, you'd expect to find all different manner of snake creatures, and that's exactly the case. Some of the most recognizable, however, also happen to be some of the most poisonous. These are known as hornet cobras. Their venom is so potent that there seems to be little chance of survival if a person happens to be bit. Definitely something you wouldn't want to cross while walking through the jungles and forests of Dominaria. Outside of the normal slithering snakes, Dominaria is also home to a few snake people, although their case is certainly not the norm. The entire race were created by Chainer, a master of nightmare and dementia magic. He used the ancient and powerful reality warping artifact, the Mirari, to banish the Cabal leader, known as the First, in order to take over the criminal empire for himself. To ensure the First wouldn't return, Chainer created a race of snake men to stop his rival's eventual return to power. The snake men resisted for a while, but the First managed to sway them under his influence, and from then on they served as his personal bodyguards. Deep in the jungles of Tarkir, numerous species of snakes await prey who'd so easily succumb to their bite. In both timelines of the plane, the Sultai and the Dragon Clan following Silumgar used these creatures as intimidation tools against their enemies, along with milking their venom to craft poisons. Yet, more notable than regular snakes are the snake people found on Tarkir, recognized as the Naga. The Naga of the previous timeline were members of the Sultai brood, and were actually once normal, albeit incredibly greedy, people. In a bid for more power, these ancient people made a dark pact with demons known as the Rakshasa, who gifted them with strong magical prowess, but changed them to the Naga. Unrivaled in magic, the Naga became the dominant class in the Sultai, ruling above all with their queen, Sidisi, practicing unchecked dominance while obtaining never-before-seen wealth. In the previous timeline, they believed that they descended from the extinct dragons themselves, and thus they treat other humans as inferior scum. But oh, how time can change things. When Sarkhan Vol flipped Tarkir's history and the dragons remained kings, the Nagas were forced into slavery. With the Sultai and Naga subjugated, the clans died out and the dragons ruled. Over time, Naga began to serve as the tongue of Silumgar, able to understand and speak a rudimentary form of the dragon's language, making them perfect translators. The Naga began to whisper, spreading rumors that they too were related to the dragons themselves, if only they knew the truth. Yet, even placed at such a high role in this society, the greed of the Naga often gets the better of them. As interpreters, they often twist the Dragon Lord's words in their favor, often with deadly results. Even now, a much more undead Sidisi looks to gain favor and expand her own power, hoping to one day forcibly remove her Dragon Lord and take his place, as should have been the case in a different time. The plane of Kamagawa probably has the most interesting and unique take on snake people out of all of MTG, as they introduced a strange four-armed race known as the Orotchi. Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when I think snake, I think no arms, but these have legs and two sets of arms. The creative team sure got creative here. Anyway, the Orotchi have four arms because of where they live, that being the Jukai Forest. Their extra appendages help them locomote through the forest canopy with amazing speed and ease. The Orotchi are split into three tribes that focus on different disciplines, while still working together in harmony. The Kashi, who house and breed warriors, the Matsu, which provides snipers and scouts, and the Sakura, which focus on the race's more spiritual and shamanistic magic. One such great shaman of the Orotchi is the Archmage Kasito, who claims ancient knowledge of their even more ancient ancestor, the Great Shishiro. On no other plane are snake or snake people as involved in the story as the Orotchi are on Kamagawa. Not to mention this block single-handedly produced basically all the classic legendary snake creatures we know, so you're welcome, Commander players. The story of Kamagawa involved a crisis known as the Kami War. I don't want to spend too much time going over it, but it was basically the mortal world versus gods. The tribes of the Orotchi were led by Shishiro, who reached out to humans for assistance for the first time in their history. This didn't sit well with some in the clan, like Shizuko, a shaman who wanted to keep the Orochian old ways of isolation and neutrality, to not get involved with the Kami War. But luckily, Shishiro, along with his daughter Sachi, who led the shamans, and son Suzuki, who led the warriors, the Orotchi were able to help in the war, eventually seeing its end. On the city world of Ravnica, there exist snakes that have adapted to the close, industrialized environment by developing its own gliding method. The Patagia Viper can stretch out a thin-skinned membrane in order to catch air and glide between buildings, much like a flying squirrel for example. But even more interesting than flying snakes are the snake-haired ladies, also referred to as Medusa or Gorgons. These are the native snake people of Ravnica. These snake-skinned creatures with the face of human females and a hair full of, well, other snakes, are capable of rendering victims solid as stone with a gaze of their magical eyes. Those on Ravnica exist in the underbelly of society, shunned for their deadly and dangerous natures, but they found solace within the Golgari swarm. The Golgari were founded by the powerful necromancer turned guildmaster Svagthir, who had in his employ 4 Gorgon sisters known as the Sisters of Stone Death. Always plotting for more power, these lieutenants overthrew their master and usurped the seat of guildmaster to the Golgari, but lost one of their sisters during the fight. The remaining sisters, named Lexia, Lydia, and Ludmilla, were the last of their race on Ravnica, and their new seat of power seemed to promise their longevity. But that was false hope. The necromancer they thought they killed was resurrected and quickly killed 2 of the remaining sisters, leaving only Ludmilla alive, living in exile for the rest of her life. The Gorgons of the Golgari also gave rise to the only known Gorgon or snake-related planeswalker, Fresca. I already covered a lot of her story, which you can find linked in the description below, but just to recap, she is a Gorgon with a pretty big chip on her shoulder. She was arrested by the Azorius unjustly and beat within an inch of her life, only being saved when her spark ignited and flung her to safety. With her return, she seeks retribution for anyone who deserves it. She's a deadly assassin who has grander plans in mind, plans that seem to involve Jace Beleren, but a lot more needs to surface from the underbelly before we guess what that may be. The Nicol-Bolas-ruled plane of Amonkhet is also home to a rather strange type of snake, that being the Serpopards, creatures that are more or less half snake and half cat. These are some of the preferred creatures of Ronus the Indomitable, the green god of strength on Amonkhet. Ronus, who sports the head of a snake himself without technically having that typing, uses these fierce creatures during his trial of strength in order to prove the worthiness of his initiates, many of which are Naga. There isn't a lot known right now about the native Naga of Amonkhet, only that they live openly with other races, training and preparing for the trials of the gods. And while it seems obvious that they'd worship Ronus because of the whole snakehead thing, it's generally believed that all gods of Amonkhet are renowned equally. Finally, we end our legless, slithering journey on the godly plane of Theros, which also has a god of snakes. Well, not in so many words, but once you see her, you'll get what I mean. The god in question is Fresca, god of affliction, a giant Gorgon all others on the plane claim origin from. While being the mother of Gorgons on Theros, who worship and praise her utterly, Fresca is a god strongly associated with grief, old age, poison, and strangely enough, medicine. She's the keeper of ancient medical knowledge and potion making, said to have the cure to almost all known diseases, but hides that knowledge within nature, rather than just straight up giving it to the people of Theros. For example, the blood of basilisks can be tempered into a strong healing agent, but getting your hands on that material is really dangerous, and using too much would result in a slow, painful death. Of course, being associated with snakes and all, the Gorgons and Fresca are kinda obsessed with poison. I know, she also carries the cures for such afflictions, but she much prefers the more deadly side of apothecary. As such, most venomous snakes on Theros are directly controlled by this god, actively serving to provide the native Gorgons with endless supplies of various deadly agents. Yet this god isn't only worshipped by the Gorgons, humans too have been allured by the god's tempting knowledge, and she graciously accepts any and all looking to practice the dark magic of potion making. This is the true god of snakes, embodying the aspects of both green and black magic, bringing forth both deadly poisons and potent cures with its bite. And that, you guys, is everything I have on snakes and snake-like people across the multiverse of Magic the Gathering. Let me know what your favorite snakes in the game are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the hub here on YouTube, consider throwing the video a like and subscribing for more awesome MTG content. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here on the Aether Hub.